All right, here we go. Another week in the NFL. As we get ready for a as we get ready for another week in the NFL, week 8. And unfortunately, I am riding solo for the next 2 weeks. Unless anybody's interested in debating me on these games, you can you can go for it. But for the next 2 weeks, I am doing this on a solo deal while Matt is on vacation. But he's been on vacation a lot this year, it seems like. Don't tell nobody. But obviously, this is the lookout. And we'll, like I always tell you, we preview the games and we preview them as best as we can. So this should be a very quick show. Like last week, the only difference was I was at an event last week. I am back in my apartment this week, and we will discuss, or I will discuss the games to you, the viewers, or whoever cares to listen. So, like I said, there's 6 teams on the bye this week. So we'll look at the unanimous picks here. Uh, like I said, there's some interesting ones, but when we look back on them, there are no unanimous picks. There's only two. One is Tampa Bay over the Saints, and Indianapolis, sadly, over the Titans. Those are the two unanimous picks for the week. So we will do a rapid fire. The first one we will do is New England and Cleveland. And obviously, the Patriots are rolling, winners of 4 of their last 5, and obviously leading the AFC East. Not the Bills, they are leading the AFC East, and not because the Bills are taking a break either. They're coming off of their bye. New England already beat them head to head in Buffalo on a Sunday night a couple weeks back. Now they're playing the Browns, and like I said, the Browns are obviously playing great at home. But that's a home, and that's different. Defense is great at home. In-house defense. Cleveland is the best defense at home in the NFL this year. They give up the least amount of yards and the least amount of points. Well, actually, the second least points. I think no, they do give up the least amount of points of any home team this year. So, like I said, but that's at home. They're on the road this week, and they're garbage. They're a garbage team. They are what their record would claim to be as a 2-5 team. They're garbage on the road, and playing the Patriots is not going to be a fun deal. This is a hot team. Drake May is pushing a lot of people. Like I said, this is still a quarterback award, and all indications are it is. Drake May would be an MVP candidate in year number 2. And that's possible. He could be. This kid's doing really well. He's well coached. Obviously, Josh McDaniels is a smart offensive guy. He can't coach. He can't be a head coach for shit. But as an offensive coordinator, he has given, like I said, he obviously with Brady forever and ever, he was great with him. Didn't really need to help him. Brady was already a great quarterback before he came into his life. Then he gave Matt Jones, or Ricky Mac Jones, a solid year in 2021. So obviously, Josh McDaniels is a great offensive mind. You know, he may not be a great head coach, but he's a strong offensive mind, and obviously Drake May has had a great year to this point. And like I said, Mike Vrabel's done a great job with the defense, and they're doing good. So the Browns have no chance, and I have this feeling that Shedeur Sanders is going to be a part of this game. Something tells me that Shedeur is going to be their starter sooner rather than later. Now, maybe they are high on Gabriel. They did draft him ahead of Sanders, but Shedeur is the bigger name, the bigger last name, obviously. I think he's more talented in theory, but that's just in theory. I don't know. The fact is, you have two rookie quarterbacks, and one's starting and one's the backup. The last time that's happened in the NFL was in 2012 with Washington, then called Skins, with RG3 and Kirk Cousins. Obviously, that doesn't always happen in the NFL, but it does. But it does, and we'll see what happens there. But I think this is not going to be a good game for the Browns. I think the Patriots are going to win and win pretty comfortably. And the final score, I'm gonna say 41-20. I think they're gonna really go off. Because remember, Browns defense is better at home than they're on the road. They've already been sculled by a couple of teams. So nobody's going to be afraid of the Browns if they have to come play you instead of you playing them. All right, we're going to move on. Look at the Jets. Jets, as sad as the things are with the Jets, they're not the worst team in the NFL, despite being winless. They just don't know how to finish games. They just don't know how to win clutch. Like that Carolina game last week was so winnable. It was so winnable. I thought the Cowboys game would be winnable, but the Jets, the playing Carolina was so winnable. But now you have quarterback issues. Tyrod Taylor came in, but he didn't do enough to win, and he's allegedly injured, so you may have to go back to Justin Fields. The owner has trashed Justin Fields' play. That's even bad when your own owner takes a shot at you. But then again, Woody Johnson is one of the worst owners in football, and he obviously thinks he knows talent. No, he doesn't. He's a mealy mouth owner, like many of them. That tells you how mediocre this league is. But they're in Cincinnati this week. Cincinnati's coming off a big, big win on Thursday night last week. Joe Flacco in the Old Man Bowl, as they called the Icy Hot Bowl, but I would call it the Old Man's Bowl with Aaron Rodgers. And obviously, Joe Flacco gets to play one of his old teams because Flacco's been around this league enough, and he played for the Jets a few years ago. But obviously, it's obvious to think that these two are going to go out here. It's going to be a battle, but I just don't see where the Jets win out here. The Bengals don't scare nobody defensively, obviously. So I could see that they could throw the ball, but if Justin Fields, who Matt has obviously doesn't respect and thinks is the worst quarterback in football, then obviously then the Bengals defense should be good enough to handle him if he starts. And we don't know if he's starting or not. I have not gotten word from Schefter or Bleacher Report that says he's not going to be starting. But obviously, at the end of the day, I just don't see where the Jets win. It's one of those games I just don't feel confident that they will win. That they will win, especially when you have to defend guys like Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, and a few other guys. Chase Brown's becoming a pretty decent back in his own right. He's become their premier back. So I'm going to go with the Bengals here, and the final score 31-16. 16. All right, we'll go to this Falcons game, and a lot of quarterbacks are banged up as you would think at this point. We're approaching halfway. Next week would be the halfway point for most teams. We're already there, and if the Falcons a winnable game last week, they couldn't put together. They couldn't put it together at all last week. So here we are. They're home against a Dolphins team that's one of the worst teams in the league. A coach that I don't know why the hell he hasn't been fired yet. A quarterback if people want to take shots at Jalen Hurts, I don't know why you would. But here's the guy that took Jalen Hurts' job in college, won a national championship, nearly won a Heisman Trophy, went to the NFL, was out picked higher than Jalen Hurts in the draft. All indications are if you idiots that think Jalen Hurts, you don't like Jalen Hurts, and you think Tua is a better quarterback, check yourself. Please check yourself. Because Tua is a mess. The team is a joke. The organization's a joke. And Miami's just, to me, it's just, their only win is against the Jets. So That tells you about how bad this team is. And they've made bad decisions anyway. So, like I said, but this weekend, this is kind of a game because unfortunately, Michael Penix last week on Sunday night suffered an injury late, and he is not going to be able to play on Sunday. Kirk Cousins, the quarterback that is the highest overpaid, highest backup quarterback paid in NFL history, is going to get the start. And unfortunately, but this could also be an audition because remember, we are about what 10 days away from the trade deadline. And like I said, Kirk Cousins is obviously a name that is there for a team to take. Now, likewise, that contract, if you trade for him, Atlanta still has to pay his salary no matter where he goes. If he goes to another team, like let's say Minnesota again, or maybe Cleveland, you know, there's going to be places that if Kirk does well, if he plays like the Kirk Cousins of 2 or 3 years ago in Minnesota, there's going to be teams calling. They're going to be calling because he's still a capable quarterback. The Jets could call. He is still a capable quarterback in this league if he plays well tomorrow. If he doesn't play well and he gets a bad team like Miami, then then most of the teams back in August were right about him. He's past his prime. He's not healthy. Remember, when he's joined the Falcons in that big pay $180 million deal in the offseason 2024, he was coming off of an Achilles injury. Plus, he's 36 years old at that. He's 36 years old. He is an old quarterback. He is up there in age. So like I said, he is. This is he. But if he is healthy, and I would have to think now compared to last year, he's much healthier because he's now a year off of that. Then I expect him to do well. I think he could do well. He could play well. But like I said, it's a winnable game, obviously, because it is Miami. Miami's terrible. So I expect the Falcons, he's got a great offensive, not the greatest line, but he's got weapons. He's got the best weapons in the NFC, in my opinion, with Moody and Drake London, and obviously the best back in the conference in Bijan. He's got weapons, so it's not like he lacks weapons. So we'll see what happens here. But I think the Falcons will win, and I think they win comfortably. And I think teams that overlooked Cousins as far as a starter will reconsider and will start calling the Falcons on potential trade deals that the Falcons should listen to. I don't think they're going to trade him though, because if the Falcons are going to make the playoffs, they're going to need both quarterbacks. Getting rid of Kirk Cousins might be a failed mistake long term if something's wrong with Penix, he gets hurt later in the year, whatever. So I think Cousins will do well and potentially open the door for trade interests again. But at the end of the day, it's still, I think we should hold off on that. Falcons do win big. Final score 37-19. All right, we're going to go to my Ravens next. Things are not going well for the Ravens this year. They're coming off of a bye. They're 1-5, which is their worst. We're going back towards 96. They're tied their worst start franchise history. Things are not going well. And I just got word here a few minutes ago that despite practicing this week and doing okay, according to reports, Lamar is still not healthy enough to play in this game. And let's be honest, Lamar, when it comes to Lamar and when he gets hurt, it is a mystery sometimes. But this team is not good enough. They're not a good team right now. Like I said, when they lost that game to the Buffalo Bills to start the year, I felt like the Ravens were going to go through a tailspin. But I didn't think they would go through this kind of a tailspin where they were really bad. And like I said, they're playing a Bears team that's much improved, one of the better defenses in the league, a decent offense. Obviously Ben Johnson is doing what he has to do. But hey, the Bears have won 4 straight. They're out of the basement in the NFC North, while they still haven't won a division game yet. They're still, they are doing well. They coming off of a win on, they're just doing what they have to do. They're beating the teams they have to beat. But obviously going back to the DMV for the second time in 3 weeks, it's going to be interesting to see how these two teams how things go. I'll be honest with you. I think if LeVar played, the Ravens would win. But now that he's not playing, and Tyler Huntley, his longtime backup, is now backing him up because it's obvious that the guy that was there, Cooper Rush, with the Cowboys, didn't get it done in the couple games. Now they're gonna put Huntley back in, and remember, Tyler Huntley knows the Ravens' offensive game plan. He's basically a similar version of LeVar. He's won games for them. He's made the playoffs and started a playoff game and nearly won a playoff game for the Ravens a couple years ago. So, yeah, put somebody that knows the offense better than somebody who doesn't. And I think this will be a competitive game, but unfortunately, the Bears have the momentum that the Ravens do not have. And I just feel like there's just a lot of pressure in Chicago. There's always going to be pressure in Baltimore, but this is becoming a lost season, and 1-6 is probably mean that on paper they're heading for a 7-10 or a 6-11 season, because it doesn't look like the Ravens are going to be a playoff team. It just doesn't. I don't feel it this year. They're in last place also, so give me, as much as I hate to see my Ravens do bad the last this year. Give me the Bears. Bears going to win this game. Just the intensity. You got to keep up with intensity. They're much more healthier. They're rolling. The Ravens are not are they're just I mean, some guys are coming back and they're going to be a better defense this week, but you need number 8 in the backfield, and if you need number 8 under center. If he's not there, this Ravens team isn't going to win many games, and the Bears are playing really good football at the moment. So give me the Bears, sadly, and being that it's at home. They've been playing at home a lot lately. Like this is their third consecutive home game, even though they have a bye. This is their third straight home game. So the Ravens will not win. Bears win. Final score 31-20. All right. So we're going to go to an interesting matchup here. We're going to go to Houston next. Houston, one of the better defenses in the NFL, but they're struggling offensively. It shows every week, and it showed it get up again on a late Monday night game in Seattle. San Francisco is another banged up team, but they are 5-2. They're leading the NFC West and are currently number 2 in the NFC. So, like I said, it is an interesting deal right now with these two teams. It is an interesting deal with these two teams. So right now it's going to be interesting to see here. Now, it's also an early game, which may play into the role here for the 49ers, but I think that's no excuse if you're doing well. I think that excuse goes away. But when you look at Houston, I mean, they got, if any team that has to make a trade at the trade deadline, Houston is the team that has to make the biggest, because they have a defense that can contend in this. They're on the Super Bowl verge. They're a Super Bowl verge defense, or at least a defense that come playoff time would have a team would have problems with. They need to get him a offensive weapon, because he has no offensive weapons. And if he can get the weapon for Stroud, I'll give a lot of credit. He stays healthy with that bad line. He's taken a lot of sacks in his career, but he stays healthy. He barely misses. He barely ever missed games. That's a lot of credit for him in a year where a lot of quarterbacks starting too. But if this team's going to win, he's going to have a weapon, and they're going to have to do better with the line. Or you're not going to get an offensive lineman at this point, but you have to get weapons and spread the offense out. 49ers obviously are doing what they do. What's unique about the 49ers is Christian McCaffrey is winning, but they're not dominating teams. But the two important people that's helping the 49ers is not shockingly, it's not the head coach or even the quarterback. It's Christian McCaffrey and Robert Saleh. Robert Saleh is now became the defensive coordinator again. He was there as their coordinator a few years ago before he took the Jets job. And this defense, for some reason, despite losing Fred Warner, despite losing Nick Bosa, is still a very good defense. And give a lot of credit to Saleh. He's next man up. The 49ers are going to be in the mix. And they're doing what teams would like to do, how to manage teams with stuff like that. So it'll be interesting to see how this goes. But at the end of the day, you look at the 49ers, they're a team that just, give Mac Jones a lot of credit because, like I said before, I told Mac this as well, is that this team whipped on him in the 2021 draft. I had on my scorecard he was going to be a 49er. And he was still on the board and they drafted Trey Lance, which was like, why? Like, I would not draft a quarterback with very little college experience. I need a guy that at least made at least 15 to 25 starts in college. And he has to put up decent numbers. I'm not going to drop the quarterback that only had 5 starts like Trey Lance. That's not a sample size, and he didn't play anybody. So, like I said, it's easy to make a bust out of a quarterback that doesn't have a lot of experience. At least with Mac Jones, he went to Alabama. He won a national championship. He had talent around him, and he did well. And he's obviously okay. New England didn't work out. He was a backup to Trevor Lawrence in 2024 in Jacksonville, but luckily he gets an opportunity to prove himself here, and maybe he's done enough that he will get a full-time job in the NFL again down the road. Because I still think this is Brock Purdy's job, no matter what goes on. So, but like I said, now at the end, who do I have winning? Sadly, I have the 49ers. I just don't trust Houston's offense. So 49ers win in the final score 22-16. All right. Buffalo is next. The Buffalo Bills. Obviously, this is a team that obviously is coming off of a bye, but they're coming off of a 2-game. They're also on a 2-game losing streak, which I didn't even think they would be on any losing streak or even lose a game. But here they are, 2-game losing streak in second place in their division, and they're playing a team that's unbeaten at home in Carolina. And Carolina might be the most surprising team that right now is currently over 500. And then I get the word that Bryce Young is out. Another quarterback out. Bryce Young, now Andy Dalton. Yes, the Red Rifle. Like Joe Flacco, has been in this league long enough, knows the game really well. He just loves to play. And he had a great run in Cincy, even though he never won a playoff game there. Now he's been with Carolina the last few years. He's been his backup the last few years. But the Red Rifle is getting the start. And let's be honest, Buffalo, you better not lose this game. I know Carolina might be better. I think Dave Canales has put himself on the short list of a potential coach of the year if he keeps this up. But Buffalo, you can't be fooling around. If you're the best team in the NFL, we all think that some people still think that you are. And Josh Allen, you're a great quarterback. Get it going this weekend. Curb stop these guys. Carolina is not as good as the record says they are. Take care of your business. But I feel like they don't for some reason. They went to Atlanta and they just played flat the whole game. Like that New England loss took something out of them. And maybe it did. New England is a better team, but they shouldn't be on your level. They should scare you, not beat you at home. And then losing to Atlanta just makes no sense because of how inconsistent they are. So those are 2 games that you shouldn't have lost at all. But then again, if you're Buffalo, if you're a team that's going to be taken seriously, you have to beat down your teams. You got an easy schedule. Stop playing games. Now you're playing a team like Carolina that has been playing well this year, who currently is, it's going to be interesting to see. It's going to be very interesting to see. I think this is going to be another struggle. I just think that Carolina at home, they're unbeaten. They just know how to play. They know how to beat these teams. And I just think that, they're going to give them a fight. But I just think at the end of the day, Buffalo's the better. They are the better team, better roster, better quarterback. Everything's better. But I just think are they better than what they should be? They aren't. But I'll give them the benefit of doubt. They'll find a way here. So Buffalo wins probably on a walk-off field goal because Carolina's going to give them a fight. They're going to give them a fight. So Buffalo wins on a walk-off, and the final score 30-27. All right, we're going to go to the Monday night matchup. And like I said, the theme of the week is backup quarterbacks. And Washington, like I said, Jaden Daniels is going to miss his third game this year. They're in week 8. This is their 8th game of the year. And an old roster. And all of a sudden, the hot Kansas City team who's won 3 of their last 4 games. And they look like the team that we all know them to be. And we'll talk about Kansas City. People talk about how great the Dallas Cowboys offense is, and I laugh. Like, I literally laugh because I don't know what they're doing that makes them so impressive. I mean, I know that George Pickens has done a great job, and CeeDee Lamb, they could be that 1-2 punch that can help, but Kansas City has run the NFL for most of this decade. They have 3 Super Bowl victories in the last 6 years. They have won the AFC 5 of the last 6 years, including the last 3 in a row. This group of weapons that Patrick Mahomes has is the best he's had in about 3 years. He's got Hollywood Brown. He's got Xavier Worthy. He's got Rashid Rice. If these guys are healthy and motivated, they're the most dangerous trio right now in the league. And Patrick knows he's going to throw the ball. He loves throwing the ball. He is not a guy who's going to play conservative and you run the ball. In the Mahomes Reed era, they don't run the ball very often. They throw the ball. They pass. And they're going to pass a lot in this game. Washington has picked the wrong week to think that, okay, we don't have Jaden Daniels and Marcus Mariota. Mariota is not going to outplay Mahomes, and y'all know it. To me, I almost wanted to take the Chiefs and big in the pick'ems because I know Washington's not a good enough team without Jaden Daniels. They're an older team, and they're not going to get it done against the Rocket. So give me the Chiefs going away. I just don't see where Washington even hangs around. The Chiefs are going to beat their ass. Give me Kansas City, the final score 37-22. Now we're going to go to a late afternoon game on Sunday. This CBS has the doubleheader tomorrow. And Romo and Nance will be out there in the Mile High after the massacre of the Giants choking defensively, like melted, worse than I've ever seen a team get melted, worse than a plate get melted, worse than some food get melted on a hot asphalt on like 115-degree day. That's what happened to the Giants defense against the Broncos. The Broncos in less than 15 minutes scored 33 points. Now all of a sudden it looks like now they're playing another team that can put points up, and that is obviously the Dallas Cowboys, who have by yards the number 1 offense in the league, and they also are 3rd in points scored in 2025 so far. They do score a lot of points, but the difference is Dallas is on the road, and they have not won a game against Denver, I don't think, in the last 30 years. I mean, even when they're good, they struggle against the Broncos when they play them. You know, like it just doesn't make any sense for me to think that they have a chance. But they do have a chance because the Broncos, while they're a good team, they're not a exciting team to watch. They're a very boring team. I thought the Broncos would be one of the more exciting teams, but they just don't impress me at all. That's why the Giants should have won if they actually had a defense that could have stopped them. But to think that the Broncos, like, I can see Dallas and Broncos being in another shootout game. I don't think the Dallas as and it's funny because they're playing a weaker defense this time. Last week, the Giants gave up 33 points in less than 15 minutes. Dallas is just horrendous on all ends of the defense. Like, yeah, you saw that Deron Brand got a pick six, and he had five of them in 2023. But the secondary, but the front seven is the worst front seven in all NFL. They don't get a pass rush. Your mama can probably do nothing before a pass rush shows up. You know, your O line might be poor, but it looks like an elite O line when you go against the Dallas Cowboys front seven. That's why they're so weak. They got guys in the secondary, but they're weak. And it's funny because remember when Micah Parsons was drafted in 2021, the Cowboys for 3 or 4 months were circled in on Patrick Surtain. They were going to draft Patrick Surtain. Patrick Patrick Surtain was going to be their guy, and then he wasn't because the Broncos went and took him. Now he's the defending defensive player of the year, and it's just funny, and it's just funny because when you look at Dallas, they don't have anything that resembles that. Now you hearing all this stuff about they need defensive help. You traded away Micah Parsons. This is almost lame. This is the lamest story in free agent in the trade deadline era because you trade away because you didn't want to pay Micah or pay him the way you wanted him. You trade him away. You got draft picks. You can't worry about some this year defensively. You have an offense that has to outperform the defense if you're going to make the playoffs this year. But the problem with Dallas is the schedule is going to get tougher, much tougher. So that defense, if your offense can't play, your defense can't do shit, and you're going to lose a lot of rough games. So, like I said, Dak's going to have to continue to play over his head with his two receivers, but it's not a guarantee he or those receivers are going to stay healthy because we know they won't. CeeDee Lamb just came off of the 4-week IR. George Pickens can be a hot receiver, but can go cold in a flash. And Prescott he's a fragile body anyway. Remember, he missed most of last year with an injury. So, like I said, it's going to be very interesting how this game goes. I think it's going to be a shootout, but I just think Dallas's defense is just not going to allow. Bo Nix in the fourth quarter is the best quarterback in the NFL in the fourth quarter this year. His fourth quarter QBR is miles ahead of anybody else's. Remember, he beat the Eagles. He just beat the Giants with fourth quarter comebacks. Yeah, this is a team that when you get to the fourth quarter, you better have your ass where it's at because he will. Because damn sure the Broncos do. So at the end of the day, I'm going with the Broncos. The Cowboys will play well enough, but not good enough. Give me the Broncos and the final score 42-27. Yeah, I think it's going to be that kind of game. 42-27 Broncos. All right, we got only two more teams to look at. So the Sunday night game is coming up, and obviously, this is obviously a big one for somebody here, Aaron Rodgers. Aaron Rodgers played in New England, played in Green Bay for 18 seasons, won MVPs, won a Super Bowl, set records, franchise records left and right. Obviously, when he retires, number and name will be up there. And obviously, not the number he's wearing now, but the number he was wearing in Green Bay. Name and number will be up in the Raptors or on the. They don't have Raptors. They have the things, the board on the wall, and obviously he'll have a street name after him, like all Green Bay greats. So, like I said, but the problem here is if this is Aaron Rodgers' final season, which rumors are now, I'm hearing rumors that he might play another year in 2026, and Pittsburgh would obviously sign him again. This could be good, but remember, this game is in Pittsburgh. It's not in Green Bay. So even though, yeah, this is a big revenge game, it's a big deal. It's a Sunday night matchup. Everybody gets to see it and whatever. It's not the same if he went there. Like this is not like with Micah Parsons a month ago when he went to Dallas. This game is in Pittsburgh. The Packers are coming to Pittsburgh, so it doesn't have the same feel. But I'm sure it still has the same volume of errands because it's most still a lot of this team is a team that was there when he left after the 2022 season. His head coach is still there, Matt LaFleur, who still hasn't won shit without him, or at least significantly. And Jordan Love, who, like when he backed up Brett Favre back in the day, he backed him up for 3 years. But I told him it was time to move on, and you need to give him their thing. But normally I'll be right, but it's going to be hard because, like I say, Green Bay's the better team here, better defense. Yeah, the Steelers' defense has not played great this year, but that doesn't mean that they can't play. And Aaron Rodgers has had a solid year. Remember, Aaron Rodgers has always been a very strong quarterback. He doesn't make a lot of mistakes, even though he's up there in age and he's not the quarterback that he once was. He's still a guy who's still he's the greatest touchdown to interception ratio quarterback of all time. He does not throw many picks. He is a very, very calculated quarterback. If you watch him in his prime, Aaron Rodgers barely ever made a mistake. He was a very, very like you can look at Tom Brady as great as he is. He would make some simple mistakes from time to time in games. Aaron Rodgers never did. He basically knew what he saw, what screen he saw defensively from the best to the worst, and he knew it, and he knew how to calculate it. He still does that in Pittsburgh. Maybe not as good as he once did, but he still does that. He still does that very, very much. So this is going to be a matchup where I don't think it's going to be that hard for Aaron because I don't think it's going to be that emotional to him. This is not like Micah's situation with the Cowboys a month ago. It's not going to be too emotional for him. It's been a couple of years. Micah, he got traded like 20 days before. This is not, he's got a few years since he left. And it's not like he trashes the Packers or anything. I think he respects the organization. And I think knowing how old he was, the quarterback that he trained and taught behind him and everything else, I think he understands the situation. But he also knows that he still can play. And he thinks he can still play better than what they replaced him with. And that was the same case when he was there in Minnesota with Brett Favre back in 2009, at the end of the 2000s. So it could be a similar deal, but I'm going to go with Pittsburgh. I think Pittsburgh being at home and how, I don't know, like there's not going to be as much emotion as you would think compared to other reunions. So give me the Steelers in a battle. It's going to be a battle. I'm not going to say it won't be a beatdown or anything. No, it'll be a close game. But I'm going to go with the Pack, not the Pack, the Steelers. Final score 27-23. So that leads us to the last matchup. And let's be honest, for the Eagles, this should be a very interesting deal. This should be very interesting. A few weeks ago, we played this team on a Thursday night, the Giants. And the Giants, they beat our ass. We couldn't match their intensity. That rookie was good. That running back was even better. Well, that rookie was good. He threw and ran all over us like nobody has done in the last couple of years. I mean, one thing we've seen this year with quarterbacks, they haven't been able to really run on our defense or whatever, doing their own thing. Yeah, yeah, Jackson did that. But let's be honest, the Giants still suck. They're 2-5, and they're coming off probably the worst kind of loss you can have in any sport. You're in control. They don't score nothing for 3 quarters, and then in 15 minutes they score the equivalent of almost 5 touchdowns. The Eagles are not going to do that to anybody like that. They're not going to score no 5 touchdowns in 15 minutes, but they're going to score on this team. This is still a defense that, remember, even though the Eagles struggled on that Thursday night, they still put up 17 points. They still had a lead for a second. The Eagles are still good enough. One thing, the Eagles, they have had a lead in every game this year. They do have a lot of things. They are struggling with injuries, though. They won't have AJ Brown for this matchup. Maybe that's a good thing. Maybe he needs a break and he'll be off for a few weeks and get his mind back on things. Brandon Graham is unretired, but he's not playing in this game. They will have the Kelly Greens, those legendary Kelly Green jerseys, is returning for this weekend. Since they went to the Kelly Greens, they're 4-0. All those games obviously play at home, but they're 4-0. So it's going to be interesting to see how that all goes. But I'm not worried about the Eagles as much as the Giants, what they could do. And to me, I don't think they're going to do much because they still don't have outs. They don't still have their receivers. I mean, Wandale Robinson, but he's not the receiver he should be. And then that's just like Theo Johnson's their tight end that plays like a receiver, but he's better off being a musical talent with his name or something else or a TV show. I think the Eagles are going to get their revenge. Now, do I think it's going to be a blowout? Probably not, because without Brown, they may not spread the offense too much, and Jurgens is also out. So, could be tough snapping, but I think the Eagles are going to get their revenge. Remember, the last time the Eagles got swept by the Giants was 2007. The last time the Giants won in Philly, 2013. The last time the Eagles made the playoffs, though the Giants swept them, was 2000, and they played them 3 times. But the Giants are 2-5. They're not as good. You gotta get this out of their heads. I get it. The Giants beat them in their first meeting, but I just think that was at a time where things weren't they weren't having their shit together in the back, whatever. I think the Eagles will take care of business this time around. I think everything will be good. The smoke will clear itself. So give me the Birds. They'll get the revenge. Hurts will not, Hurts won't don't really make many mistakes anyway. So they'll run the ball. I think Saquon will even have his best game of the season. Normally he's going to break through eventually. He's healthy enough. It's not like, I get frustrated too, but I feel like he's ready to break through and have a big game. I think this is the game he breaks through and have a big game, especially against his own team, which he always has to be motivated. So give me the Birds. They win this game. And how about this? They lost 34-17 in that first meeting. They will win 34-17 in their second. They will reverse the score. Same score, but it's the Birds this time. Eagles win this game 34-17. So that's what I think of these matchups. It should be a very interesting week 8. And like I said, join us for the look back. Kwame and myself. We're going to try to get a special guest. I will start talking here in the next couple of days, and we'll see what happens. We'll be heading towards Halloween week coming up, and that should be fun. People say, "Oh, Bob's in the Hollywood spirit, in the Halloween spirit." Whatever. But this is a verse of 2 solos, and we'll see what happens. But that's all I have, and I'll take myself out. And join us for the look back. Kwame and I, and hopefully a special guest, and maybe that guy too that came on here on Wednesday. Have a good weekend.